Can everyone see that okay? Thankfully, the important information is all in white, so you will be able to see it on the board. And then no, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to click it myself. That's fine. Right, how is everybody? Good? Yeah? Sweaty, yeah. You guys are going to like get very cold very shortly, so if you need to get up and move around, that's fine. Everybody else, you've got no excuse, you've not done anything, so I suppose you should get up and move around really, because you're going to be sat down, and in a second you'll learn about burning calories. So today is going to be everything that you need to start making progress in whichever direction you want to go. Just as like a general consensus, if you feel comfortable to put your hand up as to what you want to get out of it today, I've broken it down into like 3 categories: fat loss, muscle gain, and performance. So as a, just like I say, a general consensus, so I know kind of what language and terminology to use so that it gears towards the majority, that would be really good, but we'll cover all of it. So could you put your hand up if you want to focus on performance? Put your hand up if you want to focus on muscle gain, fat loss. Cool. They all will intertwine anyway, and by the end of this you might decide to do something different or a combination of those 3 things. But the first section will be based around everything that applies to all 3 of them. If you don't get the first bit right, no matter what you decide to do, you're not going to get the result that you want. So the first bit's really, really important, and then we'll look at how we apply that depending on what your goal is. And I would say there's a bit on the sheet to fill in for every section. Fill every section in, because there might be a point in time where you want to switch or understand contextually like where you want to go to change what you want as the outcome. So I'll go over the fundamentals of nutrition and what I believe are like the more important bits to focus on. There is so much that you go into. I don't touch into like psychology of eating, so like eating disorders or even just, well, it's such a broad topic. I will just cover the very basics, I'll say, or like the factual stuff, and then how to apply them to achieve what you want. At the end of the session, you'll have a completed worksheet. Within the worksheet, I think that everything that is on there will take you in a direction that you want to go. This is all down to how you apply these things. So, frustratingly, as me and AJ just had a little bit of a giggle before, these sessions, and like many other sessions, you will sit, you'll take the information in, you'll write stuff down, but then it is down to you guys going outside and making decisions. The gym is fantastic because when you're here, you are gymming, but when you're outside and you're lifing, they're the parts that we need to sort of look at changing. So think about today about ways that you can change that. And then at the end of it, once you've got your focuses, things that you can action and measure, you could then going to talk about at the end. I'll invite you all into a little challenge where we'll spend 6 weeks together in a small group where I will provide lots of accountability and support, additional things like workouts, meal prep ideas, and then as a group I always find it works best. I work with people individually, but people get the best results when they're working as a group. So if you do want to join in, there's something extra for you on top of having everything already. So today we'll look at all of the approaches that you will go for. I want to talk about how a lot of people view nutrition plans as restriction, and they just find that it's something that they have to do with a means to an end, and they don't enjoy doing it. Hopefully you come to the gym and you enjoy coming to the gym, and previously you might have gone to the gym and not enjoyed going to the gym and you see it as a chore. I think the same should be applied to nutrition. It shouldn't be that you eat for a purpose and just make yourself miserable because you're following a diet plan that you don't want to follow, or you're eating rabbit food, to sort of quote what people would say. I want you to be able to enjoy it. So it isn't restriction, first of all. I believe it's an education so that you can make all of the right choices. It isn't a diet plan. It's a framework, a structure, giving you the knowledge so that you can apply it regardless of what happens on a day-to-day basis. I want you to be able to go home from today, pick stuff that you've got in your house already and start to apply what you've learned. I also want you to be able to walk into Tesco and make some better choices around what you need to be able to do. I want you to be able to go to a party afterwards and decide that you might have a piece of cake. I don't want you to think that you can't go out and not have cake or alcohol or whatever that is. You'll be able to have the knowledge and the understanding of be able to make the best choices regardless of the situation. no matter the goal. And this little triangle is what I think you need for success. So the knowledge, which we'll get today, consistency, which is ultimately down to you guys and making consistent actions, and then the accountability, which I've said works best in a group, but also you can be accountable to yourselves, you can be accountable to your family, you can find accountability somewhere that it doesn't have to be within this group. But I think having those three things in place will create success. The four most important topics, we'll dive deeper into these, but we've got calorie and energy balance, which we'll talk a little bit deeper on, but you have three things. You'll probably have seen these words before: deficit, maintenance, and surplus. We'll talk about balance, and then we'll talk later on about how those apply to certain goals, in particular fat loss. Within that, regardless of what you are doing, you'll be hitting some area of these three categories. So your macronutrients, which are Go, Grow, and Mojo, which is an easy way of remembering what the macronutrients do. Can anyone guess what macronutrient is under Go? Carbohydrates, correct. Grow, protein, and then Mojo, by process of elimination. Fats, yeah, to make you feel good, make you feel happy. Fat is typically the one that gets most demonized, so I think Mojo is a nice little fun way to think about it, because there's a lot of good things that come from fats. Micronutrients, Soph also calls me a micronutrient because I'm a little thing that makes her feel good. There's lots of things within micronutrients that we won't touch on today, but we will talk about some basic strategies that will allow you to increase the micronutrient density within your diet to help you feel good in multiple ways. And then hydration, which is one key. I've put it at the elixir of life, but it is really, really important, and it's something that I would probably say most of you in the room don't have enough water, me included. It's always something that we can all have more of. And a little meme at the bottom there. You already do all this, like sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. You will already do it regardless of whether you are following a diet plan or you have some goals around your nutrition. So a little bit of sort of science or education. Can everyone read these smaller bits? They're a bit blurred, aren't they? But I will read them out anyway. You will heard the term energy in, energy out, or calorie balance. We talked about deficits and surpluses. Regardless of what you do, your body will try to find balance in some way. And we need to find ways to manipulate that balance to be able to get an outcome that we want, right? So, for example, if you want to create fat loss as your outcome, you want to use fat, you will create some imbalance in the terms of you need more energy. So at that point, your body will try to find balance in some way, and that will be through a couple of ways. It will increase your hunger, and it will make you feel more hungry so that you consume more, and it will find ways of getting more energy in to balance out the demands that it has. Or you can not do that, and it can use the stores that you have already. So then you can manipulate that so that you then use the fat stores that you've already got and then use that as energy. The same applies for imbalancing the other way. If you have too much energy, your body will find ways of balancing back out to use that energy and get it back to a net zero. So it might be that you become more energized and you move around more and you burn more calories that way, and that brings it back to balance. Or it might be that your body decides it's going to use that for another day and it will store it in some way. It could store it in the form of energy. It could also grow more muscle because it thinks, I need to be able to be more adept at moving more, so I'm going to grow more muscle. So people that are thinking muscle gain, being imbalanced in the way of having too much energy is good because you're going to utilize that some way to find some balance. So as we move through the next few sections, think about ways that you can manipulate balance, but also this applies to performance, muscle gain, and fat loss. Your body will find balance in some way. It's what you do in your actions that create the outcome. Your body will just do what it needs to all the time to find a natural order. So a little bit of a first task of the day. If you know your body weight, you're going to work out where your sort of energy balances will be, or imbalances it should be, in that you're going to find what would be a moderate imbalance in the deficit side, quite an aggressive one, which that term I'll explain in a second, a maintenance one which will keep balance with your energy in, and then we'll add a surplus in. If you want to just skip the 10% bit, you can just times it by 33 as well. So just on your pages now, there should be a section with the numbers above. If you know your body weight in kilograms, you can do that. If you don't know, either go off what you want your body weight to be in kilograms, or just do like a rough guess. The easy one might be if you use a round number. That will make maths a lot easier. Dad, this is a little bit late now, but have a press record on the phone. Yeah. Good. I've put loads of like little jokes in here, but because it's so blurred, you can't really see. But your maintenance are deficit. Oh, that you can't see? Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, this was me many moons ago when I did something similar. And I had a lot more hair back then. But you can't see it. Yeah. That's a lot of people doing the numbers right now. Right, no, yeah. It's the very first box. It's okay if you've done it in the fat loss in the other area. That's okay. 33, yeah. You can either add 10% from that, so you could add 210 calories, or you can just times it by 33 to get the same. Yeah. Yeah, it's good news. It's good news. Those that have written them down, is there anything that is surprising, in a good way, in a bad way? You would die? Yeah. Okay, yeah. There you go. So you could eat the same meals. Yeah. Anybody else? Mitesh, are you surprised? In good, surprised bad? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Right, so just to bring you back in, a couple of things that I think are important to mention. So Soph has just said that she would die, right? And those of you that know Soph know that she doesn't sit still. So the numbers that she's got written down don't reflect what she has to do currently as the life demands, because like I've just said about balance, her actions mean that we need to find balance in some way, so she'll have to consume more than what's written down on the page. Yeah. Now, Soph doesn't have a fat loss goal. I would argue performance goal. Yeah. But also like health goals. So she will use the number there, but then she'll also know that through her own feeling, her energy levels, her happiness, like all sorts of other things that she'll have to increase. Jackie and Aiden are a good example. Both different genders, different ages, but have similar calories for Jackie to lose weight and Aiden to gain weight, right? Yeah. So numbers will be like contextual depending on your person, your age, your gender, what you do, like what life demands. I don't know what you all do for jobs, but jobs will affect it massively. Stresses. If you've got a baby that gets you up in the night and your wife doesn't go up to change nappies, all those things. The good news is that you are all in control, right? So this should feel empowering regardless of what number is on the page. This is just a guidance number for you to start making some actions. And I'll use this analogy, but I'll use it later on. It's a little bit like being worried that you're poor but not checking your bank balance. So sometimes people might be a little bit upset with the number that they see, or they might be a bit surprised at the number that they see. This again is just a guidance, but it's something that will direct your actions depending on where you want to go. The energy in part, right? You are fully in control of everything that you eat. Unfortunately, this comes within different pressures will dictate how much energy you put in. But everything that goes past your mouth is going to be your energy in. Don't think like that. You can control that with just sheer willpower, right? Sheer willpower is great, but there'll be times where willpower doesn't suffice. You'll be at the mercy of somebody in work bringing something in for the birthday, or you might be having someone might have beeped at you on the way into work and you're a little bit stressed, so you end up getting something extra to cheer yourselves up. It might be that you're just feeling under the weather that day, so willpower will work for a period of time, but we need to find other things that will help you, which is why there's different things, different strategies that you can use for every goal that will help when willpower isn't there. A food diary is a great one if you're someone that likes like the admin side of stuff, or just like to have a clear picture of how you're doing it. Portion rules, so you can change the size of your plate, or just decide that you're only going to have things like typical strategies like a fistful of carbohydrates, a handful of protein, like they say like a thumb size of fat, things like that. Now they're very general terms, depending on how accurate you want to be. I personally would say if you can do a food diary, that would be great. This is just for measuring your energy in, and it doesn't have to be for the whole time. If you find a routine of having the same things over and over again, you don't have to diarize everything all of the time. But if you have an idea and you can calibrate kind of what you're doing on a daily basis, you then can scrap the diary and you know roughly where you are, and then maybe every month, 2 months, track a week, and then it kind of puts you back on track rather than extra like tablespoons of stuff creeping in before you know it. You can put restrictions and swaps in place, so you can just have blanket rules of being like Lent is a really good one that people say they're like, I'm not having any biscuits for Lent. That's just a very strong restriction where you just make a rule where you're not having something. Or you'll swap things out, so simple things like cordial instead of fruit juice, or diet drinks instead of full sugar drinks, like just making a swap that you will stick with regardless of where you are. There is multiple things that you can help control what goes past your mouth. The opposite is true when you talk about what your energy out is. Your energy out is made up of 4 main things. Now, your BMR is essentially the energy that your body burns just to stay exactly where you are right now. We can't control that really. We can over a very, very long term. As you grow, if you get more muscle, you'll burn more, your BMR will go up. But people worry about metabolism, and this is really what they say when they're talking about metabolism, when they say they've got a slow metabolism. Ignore that. There is individual differences, but it isn't that great that mean that you're in a certain situation different to other people. The very, very tiny one at the top is the amount of energy it takes for you to burn food. So you can manipulate it in some ways and have food that is harder to burn, but also I'm not going to talk too much about that because you can't control it really, other than just changing your food choices. And when you do control it, it accounts for such a little bit. The 2 things that you can control, one of the least effective ones, especially when it comes to expending energy, is actually this here, which stands for exercise activity thermogenesis, which sounds really fancy, but it basically just means your intentional actions to burn calories, like exercise, when you're deciding to exercise, which means when you're in the gym. And people typically overestimate the amount that they burn in the gym, what the watch says or what the bike says when you're burning calories, or you leave the gym feeling gassed because you think, wow, that was such a hard session. People tend to overestimate how much they've done, and then what that turns into is they go home, they sit down because they've done a hard session at the gym. Some people might reward themselves with something like high calorie, something that they feel like they deserve, like a treat, and they end up wiping out an overestimation and actually go over what they've actually done. And that is just for 1 hour of the day. And if you're up for 12 hours a day, you've got 11 more hours of the day. And this is where, particularly for fat loss goals, this is where people will get most results when they're being more active. So this just stands for non-exercise. So things that you don't consider exercise: standing up when you're at home, going up and down the stairs, cleaning the house, walking the dog, parking further away at the shops, carrying a basket rather than a trolley. Like essentially just making your life a little bit harder so that you burn more overall. And you'll probably burn more on a daily basis just by being the type of person that always takes the stairs rather than the elevator or lift if you're not American. There's lots of things you can do just in general life to be able to increase your energy output. This applies for fat loss in a way of you can increase the amount of fat that you're wanting to burn by being more active in general, but it can also be a detriment if you are someone that wants to gain muscle or you want to perform. So if you're someone that's got, say, a very, very active lifestyle and you're looking to perform in the gym and you're looking to improve what you're doing in the gym, but you're coming in knackered because you've spent all day on your feet, or you've been moving all the time, or you've got a huge dog that you've got to walk for 4 hours of the day, you're not going to get much out of it in the gym. So it works in both ways. Yeah, I think that was everything that I'll cover on that one, yeah. Distributing. So in a second we're going to work out in the boxes below. I don't want you to do that just yet. I want you to concentrate on this 3 charts. I'm glad you can see these. But these are all a week that all accumulate to 14,000 calories. So if you're on your sheets, you've got 2,000 calories down as either your maintenance or your fat loss or whatever, it's really easy to see. But just adjust this number and just imagine these bars are how you're going to distribute your calories. You can distribute your calories across the week however you like, depending on what your goal is. If we gear towards fat loss, like most of you are looking towards, the outcome will be exactly the same on your body weight if you distribute your calories as these 3 people. If you're like a steady Eddie, you're someone that like is a weekend warrior, likes to have a good time at the weekend, or you're somebody that has more active days and less active days, or you want to have like treat days where one day you'll be really strong and then other days you might say, I'm going to ease off and relax on my goals a little bit. Either of these approaches are fine because they all accumulate in 14,000 calories at the end of the week. And like I've said, your body will find balance across a time frame as it will on a daily basis, as it will on a weekly basis. We've put those time frames in place. Your body just doesn't reset after 24 hours or after 7 days. Like, these are all arbitrary numbers that we've put in place. You can distribute it however you want, in the same way that you would distribute your budget. Who spends all the wages in the first week? Yeah? It's exactly the same as that, right? Really, you should be budgeting throughout the whole week, and you should be able to be probably a steady Eddie that spends, but most of us are like this in reverse, where we'll live like a king and then live like a pauper for the rest of the month. But this is an easy way if you're looking at the number that you've got and you're thinking, but I've got something at weekend that's coming up, a wedding or something. You could just go like this and have really low calories or lowish calories throughout the week, knowing that you've got something at the weekend that you can then have more, and you won't come away from your goals whatsoever. The outcome would still be the same as if you was to be steady across the week. And like I said, this is the key word of the day, balance. The macronutrients are something that I think people get really caught up on, and it's the more complex part of nutrition. These all provide really good things in their own way. I've talked about carbohydrates being the grow part. They provide you the energy to move. Some people might feel a little bit scared of rice or bread, Dad. Carbohydrates are really good in every sense. Like, they should be something that you view positively because they provide fuel, they provide fiber, they do have micronutrients in them, they do also make up, probably in just one item of food, all of these things together. Fats will help with a lot of things that people just see the word fat, and unfortunately being called fat and the macronutrient fat, one of them sounds really bad, but if we had just a different name for it, I don't think people would demonize it as much. But it comes with lots of things like improving your hormone health, your skin health. It helps in like distributing energy throughout your body without getting too like sciencey. There's lots of things that fat will do in good nature that you shouldn't be afraid of having fats, and that includes, when people think of fat, they automatically go to burgers at McDonald's. The fats that you get from burgers at McDonald's might not be the best fats for you, but they're not bad. There isn't inherently anything bad about them. You could make a better choice in the same way that you could go for a really bad run where you don't run very well. You might run slowly and then fast, slower than fast, or you might go for a really fast one. Both are going for a run. They're both positive outcomes. In the same way for fats, you can just have fats and make good choices around the fats that you're having, but depending on your choices around these things, like if you are going to McDonald's all the time, there is much more there is better choices is what I'm trying to say. Protein is the macronutrient that allows you to grow muscle. But then there are other things that protein will provide, but that isn't something that people typically demonize. And then water, but whatever you're doing, you need all of them. So below the section that you've got on a box, there's 3 sections that are based on your macronutrients, micronutrients, and hydration. What I'd like you to do is look at those things and choose one or all of them or some of them, things that you think could help you improve in some way going towards the goal that you want to go to. You're not having more veg. You are a veg. Yeah, I was hoping someone would ask that. Right, so the panda method is like a black and white approach. So it applies to alcohol mainly. So for people that drink, it should be good news. I'm not saying that you have to completely abstain from alcohol, but what I am saying is the panda method is where you go black and white in your decisions. You'll have an alcoholic drink and then you'll have some water. And an alcoholic drink, you'll have some water. So you still get to go out and have a drink, but you also stay super hydrated. Your hangovers isn't as bad. The same applies for like coffee. People do it with coffee, like hydrate before you caffeinate. You can have some water before you have your drink. And you can do that with meals. Just make sure it's essentially saying that you're going to have water before you make a decision around something else. The panda method is just a really good rule to make you get more water in. So these are just 4 ideas in each category that you can do. If you've ticked them, I'd like you to try and stick to them. They should be really simple. They shouldn't be things that are too hard, which means that you should be able to do them at least from today. But what you will find is that in making these little decisions, you'll start to shift to be the type of person that you want to be. If you take this as an example, this is a bell curve, and it basically shows where most people lie, like on a general population level, but it also applies to how your actions would be if you think about the curve being further this way into like performing at your best, both in the gym or just getting towards your goals, and then this would be underachieving towards your goal. So can you think about the little things that shift your curve more towards this end where we all want to be, so that on average your decisions steer you towards what you want as the outcome? The micro decisions will move the decisions both ways. One micro decision in that one good meal doesn't change anything, in the same way that one bad meal doesn't change anything, or one bad training session compared to one good training session. But what does matter is that across the week you make multiple micro decisions that are good, which equate to one good week, one good month, and then it all stacks up in these little decisions. And I want you to think about that's what those suggestions are. If you can do those on a daily basis, seemingly not that important, drinking 1 litre of water every 4 hours, which doesn't sound that hard, 250 mils every hour, that will start to shift in a micro way your curve this way. And I want you to think about decisions that will shift this so that they all become towards the top performer end. Your average is what's best. Actually, before we move on, can anyone think of, I'm going to put people on the spot, anyone think of decisions that they currently make that might shift them towards this end? Coffee instead of juice? Just alcohol? Yeah. Yeah, there you go, yeah. Yeah. You'll all have something, whether you're saying it outwardly or internally, you'll all have something. I'm not saying that you have to change them, but you can change them on an average. So I'm not saying, Matt, don't go out and get smashed every night. Maybe just stick to like once a weekend every month. I know you're not going to do that, but mine, the one I thought of, which isn't nutrition based, but it does apply. I spend way too much time on my phone at night. And then before I know it, I've just cut down 2 hours of extra sleep that I could have had. And I've spent a lot of time flicking through nonsense reels. Yeah, and then I recover poorly, my energy levels are low, I make worse decisions the next day. Was that what you expected? No? Right then, fat loss. Then I suppose this is the more important one based on what everybody wants. So if anyone has any questions at any point during this, please just ask them. If you're thinking it, somebody else will be thinking it. So if you've got the courage to just ask, I'll happily explain. You will, in your fat loss goals, your actions, like I've said, will take you to where you want to go. And that will be either in a positive way, or it might be in a negative way if you're making bad actions. I've talked about your energy balance, and if we distill it down into its simplest form, if you've got more energy in than what's going out, you'll tip the scale in the way of having a surplus, which is bad for fat loss. We don't really want a surplus. What we do want to have, though, is want to understand how we can maintain our body weight through nutrition and exercise, or we want to be able to create a deficit in some way, again, through nutrition and exercise. And these are the two main things that apply to fat loss. There's a little story about the tortoise, the hare, and the tree, which I think is like a really childlike but really good way to view your energy in, energy out to create some sort of fat loss. So we all know the story about the tortoise and the hare, like slow and steady wins the race. In this case, we're all going towards the same way, so regardless of which one you choose, you will be applying each one of these at some point. But if we focus on the hare approach, it's really, really good for fat loss. If you're really, really aggressive in the deficit that you create, which is the word aggressive I wrote down before, which is your body weight times 22, you're creating a really, really large deficit by not consuming a lot of calories or expending a lot of calories. You'll create fat loss at a really fast or aggressive rate. And it also gives you a lot of room for error, in a sense of if you think about that balance that I talked about before, you've got the balance point of just staying exactly the same, but because you're in such a large deficit, if you do make a mistake or you do have a bad day or something happens where you can't stick to your desired actions, you've got room for error where you're not ruining all your hard work, you're not getting to balance, you're still in a deficit. The bad things are, though, with this, is that it's really, really hard to maintain. It's like sprinting the first mile of a marathon. You're not going to keep that pace up. Yeah, willpower will take you so far, but there will be a point where you'll risk burning out and you won't be able to keep going at that rate. So which is why we need to understand Mr. Tortoise. He's sustainable, he's flexible in terms of decisions, because there aren't, he's got more calories to play with, essentially. Like, he's got more budget to be able to make decisions to fit within the amount of calories that he's got. And he's more resilient in a sense of when life happens, like I said, you go into work, someone's brought cake in, you're not in such a large deficit that you can't say, I can't have any of that. You actually be able to work out within your week where you can fit those things in at maybe the expense of something else that you've been planning. The bad things are that you get slower fat loss. So in terms of like buy-in, typically when you go onto fat loss plans or diet plans, they'll put you on a really, really aggressive deficit. And part of that is because you see an instant win, which is really, really good for motivation, but it doesn't give you the tools to be able to apply when things start to slow down and you don't have that win to keep you motivated. So you can get demotivated by not seeing as much progress as you'd like to. It also gives you not as much room for error. So I spoke about that window. You might find that if you don't stick to your sort of steady Eddie approach, you could make a couple of bad decisions, like going out and getting smashed at the weekend, and then you write off all the hard work that you've done in the week to keep the deficit. And then Mr. Tree, as boring as he is, he's something that I think will be your secret weapon when it comes to losing weight. So if you've tried to lose weight before, you'll have probably experienced something where you don't have the best scenario to keep making decisions that you want to make, and you end up going, well, what's the point? Yeah, you've got, I don't know, a wedding, like as an example, and then you think, well, I'm at the wedding now, everyone's drinking, everyone's having cake, I got no choices in terms of what food I eat, so I might as well just bin it all off. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, I've made all these bad decisions, what's the point in making them today? And then before you know it, it spirals and you're like, I'll start again Monday. This guy, maintenance, you've all got your maintenance numbers down. If you decide for that day you're going to consume your maintenance amount of calories, you're not going anywhere, you're standing still in the race, but what means you're not taking steps back and you're not catastrophizing because you've made some bad decisions. I think this is probably the most important one, just to keep you cool, keep you calm, and be able to manage sort of what comes in life, to still take steps towards your goal and not start on the back foot. Just by maybe a show of hands, out of these two, which one do you think you would rather be? And it really depends on the person, really. Do you think you'd rather be really aggressive? Or do you think you'd rather be a bit steadier? Yeah? Different people. I would much rather be steady in my approach, but I also know that it takes a little bit of buy-in to know that I'm going to have to wait a long time to see the results. Some people like to be just straight in and go as hard as possible and get some quick returns.
I'd say I've been a rabbit. And
Yeah.
It's proper hard when, like,
Yeah.
you know, you get to a certain level. It's better to be the top of something.
Yeah, but I think as well, that's what I think I mentioned this in the next one. You could be all three, right? Yeah. Yeah. This is where, like, understanding each thing rather than just being given a number by somebody and saying, have this will happen, and then when it doesn't happen, you don't know what to do. If you understand that you can be all three and you will be all three inadvertently, depending on what type of day you've had, you're still able to make actions towards where you want to go. And I've used the money analogy before, and nobody likes to budget. Everyone likes to just spend and do the fun part of what money gives you rather than saving. But if you can be all of these three and make decisions based on what your day allows, your week allows, what you know is coming up, you can make sure that you don't blow it all on payday, like I've mentioned. You can save things for a day when things aren't favourable for you. There might be things like social pressures that come into play, and unfortunately we're all the same people, and there are very, very clever people that are paid a lot of money to make you make decisions to consume things. So like in advertising, in marketing, in the way design is, like you think about like packaging, the way information's given to you, like everything is geared towards you consuming more. And as smart as we all are, we are at the mercy of these people that will do everything to make you spend a little bit more and consume a little bit more. But if you can be these three things, you can be fully back in control and you can decide on where you want to go. And if you do make the harder decisions, when you can make the harder decisions, like turning up today when you would probably rather spend your Saturday in a different way, you're doing sort of the harder choice today so that you can make the better choices later on. In the same way, if you can decide throughout the week that you are going to be the best possible person you can be, if you want to be this person and you're going to go low throughout the week, you might find that by the time you get to Saturday and Sunday, you don't actually have anything going on and you think, you know what, that wasn't actually that bad. I'm going to stay at this level and create an even larger deficit by not just using the extra calories because I got them at the weekend, because your ultimate outcome is to lose as much fat as possible. If something arises, you can go up there, but hopefully something doesn't, or you decide, no, I don't need to let that affect me, and you can keep those calories in your back pocket and create more fat loss. Go for it.
Does it go, do you know what they were saying, if you eat too less calories is dangerous and start, burning your muscle rather than fat, etc.
Yeah.
What point does that happen?
It'd take a very, very long time to start to burn muscle rather than fat, so I wouldn't worry about that. I think it's about 2 weeks of doing absolutely nothing for your fat to start breaking down. If you're in a coma, like, you wouldn't actually lose any or little muscle mass within 2 weeks anyway, so I wouldn't worry about that. In the same way that, like, if we use fasting as an example, people fast for a very long period of time and they lose a lot of weight, but they don't start to lose body mass, like they don't die. Yeah. So I wouldn't really worry about that. That's like a very, very extreme. There isn't really a point. What you will find is that things happen where your body will find a balance, like I've talked about, right? If you're in too low of a deficit, your body will stop you from doing things that cost energy. So you're less likely to stand up. You'll talk less with your hands. Like, your blinking rate will slow down. Like little things like that will start to change. So you'll start to feel really low on energy. So your body will save ways before it starts to break down muscle anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's a good question though, because that is something that a lot of people do worry about. And the other thing is, I've spoke to Keith about this before now. People will say you need to eat more to lose weight. Now, hopefully you'll know that that isn't true based on the information that I told you about calories in, calories out, or energy balance and deficit. But what's interesting about it is some people would benefit from eating a little bit more to give them more energy to expend more through creating more energy out in that NEAT that I talked about, that non-exercise part. But what people take that is that their body's in that starvation mode where it's holding on to energy. That isn't the case. It's essentially just you're so low on energy that you're not moving at all. You're not effective in the gym. You're not effective at work. You're not effective at home. So you could have a little bit more, but that doesn't mean a little bit more in the way of a Mars bar. That means a little bit more in the way of something like an apple or a larger portion of carbohydrates at your tea time or meal time in the breakfast, something like that. So yeah, go on.
I mean, I saw a couple of clinical studies, and I don't know if you looked into it, but they took...
Not those specific ones, no.
I've seen a few of them now. They took a large group of people, put them on a calorie deficit, had a control group, calorie deficit group, and they maintained the same calorie deficit, same, controlled all the factors, but one group had a calorie deficit where they were a higher carbohydrate intake and a low protein, and the other group, same calories, same calorie deficit, had a higher protein intake and a lower carbohydrate.
Yeah.
They both lost the same amount of weight, but the difference was one group lost more fat and less muscle mass than the group, the body composition changed.
Yeah.
So I've seen a few studies that say that. So saying that if you were in a calorie deficit, if you have a higher protein intake in your calorie deficit, you can limit the amount of muscle loss.
Yes.
Fat loss. I mean, I've seen a few things like that.
Yeah. Well, it's so that's like interesting. The next two slides when no, it's okay. It's all right. It shows that you're on the right track, though, right? So yeah. Well, so that is really true. But if I put my harsh cap on, I would say the fact that most of you are here thinking about fat loss, you probably don't need to think about maintaining muscle. You'll probably get more out of losing fat, not at the detriment of worrying about muscle, right? I would say if you just concentrate on making it as simple as possible and just treating it as the energy equation in and out and lose the body fat, you can build muscle, body weight that you're happy with and a fat mass that you're happy with. But you are right in that you can manipulate it in other ways. What I have experienced is that people worry too much about all the other macronutrients that we've talked about and like macro splits and how much protein they're having, keeping muscle mass, or worrying about getting too much muscle, like in both sides of things, when really it's just too complex. It's not, you don't need to do that. If you want to have an outcome, like distill it down as simple as possible. But you are right in the sense of you can manipulate your body composition depending on what your calorie deficit is made up of. But yeah, I will touch on that in a second as well. On your sheets, I think we're at a point where I need to use your sheets now. I'd like you to circle one of the images as to which one you think you're going to be from today. You can change that. You can hopefully be the different ones. But what I also want you to do is take the numbers that you've got at the top and times them by 7 to give you your weekly balance, which should be a nice big number. And then you can decide as to which person you are or which character you are on different days, different weeks. You can adjust to meet what life demands. Will you get me a water, please? In fact, that also reminds me, everyone should have a coffee mug, Soph. Everyone should have a coffee mug. Maybe we'll give it at the end. Yeah? Thank you. Right, hopefully you are pleasantly surprised by the number that you see. If you're not, I'm sorry. There are plenty of other things that you can focus on, but like I said, keeping it as simple as possible. We won't go into all the different swaps that you can do, food environment, different styles of training, habit stacking, like there's loads of other things, but in the 6 weeks afterwards, if you decide to come along, I've got videos on all of these things. I'll be creating more videos based on sort of what you guys want, but we'll talk about all the other things that will help in specific settings. Muscle gain then. This is a more complex approach, so I've put them in order of complexity. Fat loss is probably, in terms of application, the simplest one because it requires just two things, energy in, energy out at its simplest form without thinking about all the other factors. Muscle gain is a little bit harder, which is why we all aren't walking around absolutely massive, struggling to get through the door, because if muscle gain was easy, I'm sure we'd all be in that position, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we all are, yeah. We're all monsters. You are if you go to that mirror at the back, that makes you look jacked. But if we, again, make it as simple as possible so it's as easy to apply, there's three main factors that come towards when you're trying to gain muscle, which we should all be thinking about regardless of what our goals are. So materials, which is the sort of nutrition part, which is your protein, the stimulus that you create through your training, and then the time that you recover, which is something that most people don't do. There are other things that I've put in the bottom there, but again, just keeping it as simple. We don't need to necessarily worry about carbohydrate intake for our energy or the volume that we are training, your hydration, your sleep. These will all be factors, but as keeping it as simple as possible, these are the three things that you'll focus on. Hopefully, your stimulus is taken care of because you all come to the gym regularly anyway. I would say at least 3 times a week would be enough to suffice for you to start gaining muscle, depending on your training age. But for most of us in the room, 3 times a week is plenty. Recovery, this depends a lot on the time in between your sessions and what you spend that time doing. I used to say that getting 8 hours of sleep a night is an absolute must, but then I became a dad and I realised that I cannot be hypocritical in saying that you should be getting 8 hours of sleep a night, because now I realise that it isn't that easy. It used to be easy, but now it isn't. But you can prioritise in other ways, in that you can make sure that you're not scrolling on your phone before bedtime like I have been doing. You can set your alarm at the night to tell you to go to sleep rather than setting your alarm in the morning, which I think is a good little strategy. It's just something just to break the pattern of the day for you to start sleeping more, but also just not being super active throughout the day. So if we take someone that is highly athletic, that spends most of their time out walking or doing little extra things in the day when they should be just sat down recovering, that is a different way you can spend your time. I have a friend who plays for St. Helens, and part of his contract is to spend at least an hour a day in the recovery boots that inflate and deflate, and that is part of his contract. He has to do that because he can't be walking around, so he just watches Netflix for an hour. But then the materials, right? What's that? Yeah, it's a good bit of contract, isn't it? The materials, this kind of is what I was thinking when Matt mentioned what your diet is made up of. When you are thinking about building muscle, you have to have materials. In the bottom here, as an analogy, we need to be able to build something. So if you think about building a house, you can't build a house without materials. You also can't build a house if you're not telling the builders what to do, which would be your training stimulus. And you also won't be building a house if you don't give them enough time to do it, which would be your recovery. So you need all of these things to build the house that you're trying to build, or build the muscle that you're trying. And materials is probably the most important one, because you could have all the time in the world and have all the builders in the world, but they're not going to build anything if you don't give them anything to build with. So protein intake is one of the key parts of nutrition when it comes to muscle gain. I'm actually just going to touch on this one first. Within your calories, depending on what your amount is that you have, the priority should be in protein. So in a second we'll work out how much protein you've got to consume to be able to start to gain muscle, and you'll use that amount of protein within your calorie amount, and then what is left over, you then have a preference towards carbohydrates or fats, which is what Matt mentioned in the study earlier. The people with a higher protein amount will have gained more muscle within their deficit, in their calorie amount, and the people that had less protein and had more carbohydrates and fats will have lost the same amount of weight, but won't have kept as much muscle. They'll have lost more muscle and probably kept more fat mass. So when you are gaining muscle, prioritize your protein amount, and then what is left within your calories, you will distribute towards carbohydrates and fats. Let's, just to sort of break up me talking, if you use the boxes that are provided just to work out, again, some more mass for you, use your body weight and times it by, I would say, 1.6. And then you can do sort of an upper amount of 2.6 if you wanted to give yourself a little window. Right, so you should have two numbers, 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight and 2.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. Is anyone surprised by the number? Yeah? It's a lot? Yeah? It's a lot? Yes, correct. It is very hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And this is where using whole foods can get quite difficult to get your protein out in, especially. So Jackie's just made a really interesting point in that she said, or the little group over here said that they're surprised by the amount. It's a lot, and it's really hard. Yeah. And practically, it is very, very hard to get that amount in. I would probably bet a little bit of money, the little bit that I do have, on saying that 90% of the people in the room don't hit their protein amount, which is okay. Like, life means that you might not be able to get it, but if you are focusing on something over the next 6 weeks, if you are going to create a challenge, like a challenge isn't easy, you can then start to up your protein, right? I don't want you to be someone who's thinking fat loss is my main goal, but now I've got to fit this protein amount in, so I'm going to do that at the expense of my calories. That shouldn't be the case. As a consideration, your muscle gain and your protein consumption shouldn't outweigh your fat loss gain if you're someone that's more geared towards fat loss. If you're someone that's happy to gain weight, then that's okay. Gaining fat and muscle at the same time is perfectly fine. Because it allows you to go towards maybe that upper limit or even just the lower limit within the context of what you're having on a daily basis. To make this a little bit more manageable, there's a couple of things you can do. So to optimize, which is the key word, you will split this into as many portions as possible. So if you can make it into 4+, or I've got 6 things here, it makes it a little bit easier to get the amount of protein in that you want. If you go breakfast, dinner, snack, something after you train, something at your tea, and then before you go to sleep, I would probably say sleep and post-training are probably supplemental. I can't imagine anyone working out a chicken breast out of the bag after they've had a training session, right? But a whey protein shake would be perfect for something like that, and that is something that most people think about when they think about muscle gain. Whey isn't something magical. It's just a really convenient and not very tasty protein source until you put a load of sweeteners with it. So don't be worried about consuming a whey protein. A little side story, if you are going to consume whey protein and you don't want to gain a load of muscle, don't buy muscle gainer protein. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of calories in that, which a lad that we used to work with, he used to come to the gym actually. Do you remember Jenkins? he wasn't losing weight, and his diary was really, really good, and I couldn't work out why he wasn't losing weight. And I just happened to say, what's this whey protein that you're having? He went, oh, it's just something I got from My Protein, and it was like a mass gainer shake, which was like, every shake was like 800 calories, and having like 3 a day. I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly why you're not doing it. You're barely eating, but you're having like 2,400 calories a day on shakes. So yeah, just be careful which one you choose. Just a normal whey protein is perfectly fine. And if you're not sure, just message me. But if you want to optimize it, break it up throughout the day, and you can quite easily fit in 30 grams using supplements on these two, and then 30 grams at your breakfast, dinner and tea. Breakfast typically is one of the harder ones if you don't have someone like eggs and bacon. If you're someone that has breakfast bars on the go or cereal, you'll have to think about ways you can add that in. But there are different ways that I can help you with if need be. But the most important part is that optimizing isn't essential, right? It's on a daily basis. So calories work on an average basis. You can manipulate your calories based on a day, a week, a month, a year, and get the outcome that you want depending on how you balance it. Your body doesn't work like that. There's only so much your body can do in terms of utilizing the protein that you put in. So if you overconsume one day and then underconsume another day, your body won't backlog it and use it at another point. It has to be used within an amount of time. If you don't use it within an amount of time, like a day, your body will just expel it. You won't use that protein. So if you're thinking about gaining muscle, you need to do this on a daily basis. Daily is more important than optimal. And you can't think, oh, I'll have more today because I had less yesterday. Just reset every day and try and hit your 1.6 grams or whatever you choose to be on a daily basis. I've already said it shouldn't be at the expense of fat loss. Your sources should be mixed. It shouldn't all be through whey shakes. It should be through whole foods, dairy, meat, fish, like try and get it in as much as possible. If you are a vegetarian, it's a little bit harder to get in, but there are ways that you can get it in. It just becomes that you have to eat quite a lot of volume of food if you're not going to supplement. Daily basis, like I've said, rather than weekly. The optimal part is, as it is, optimal isn't best. It's making sure that you can get it done. And it will not work without recovery or stimulus. Your stimulus is check, but recovery might not be. You should also have, if you've not already done it, something just to commit to today, like your frequency of training. If you've got something in your mind already that you train, say you train 3 times a week or 4 times a week or 5 times, you can pop that down. But what I would say is think about the frequency and is there some extras that you can do? So it might be that if you can come in to the gym 30 minutes before, you could always do some accessory stuff. You could do something that would help. Maybe on a gymnastics day, you could do a little bit more squatting. Something really, really simple in that. Or even in the fat loss side of things, you could come in and you could spend 20 minutes extra on the bike before or after class, so long as it doesn't affect the class. But just think about the frequency you train at the moment. Either just commit to sticking with that and make sure that you are a person that goes to that, rather than saying I come 3 times a week, but sometimes I come 2 times a week. I want it to be at least 3 times a week for the next 6 weeks. Or can you up it to 4 times a week and just have those days when it's raining and you really don't want to come, to be the challenge is the thing that makes you come over the next 6 weeks. Committing to your minimum hours of sleep, whatever that might be. I'm not going to commit to any of that. Performance. This is the most complex one, right? Which is why a lot of the vast majority of us wouldn't consider us performers, right? I would say if you think about the gym and think about who performs, everyone would probably say Mel. Yeah, and as an example, that's because she is in a position where she can perform, but she doesn't really need to focus on fat loss or muscle gain. This is one of the more complex ones, which is why there is very few of us that would say we are the people that perform. So there's lots of factors to consider. But one of the main things that I think will help you perform is focusing on quality rather than quantity. And that applies to quantity in terms of your energy levels. So thinking about the quality of your energy levels or the quality of the fuel that you provide yourself, rather than just consuming lots of fuel. And what your diet is made up of. Are you somebody that thinks about, is your lifestyle gearing you towards performance? We've got an activity in a second that will sort of explain that. The same applies for your activity. Is it high levels of quality in your activity, or are you coming into the gym and just kind of getting through workouts? You can't really do that if you want to perform. That is just, again, quantity rather than quality. Your recovery, what you're doing in the terms of recovery, are you somebody that spends time recovering when you're resting well, or you're being active, or even the way that you fuel, like in your spare time? Are you someone that leans towards having something with a higher protein content, or are you someone that thinks I'll just have a packet of crisp or a chocolate bar? That doesn't really gear towards your performance in terms of recovery. And then the amount that you train. So when we think about performance, please think about quality being the high prioritized thing. If you think about an athlete, right, I'm going to ask you all something because some people haven't talked yet. If you think about what an athlete does, what do you think an athlete does in terms of their exercise? As an example. Anyone? Do they exercise? Yeah. Yeah? Do they just come in and do whatever they want? No? Do they have a structure, right? They have a focus. It's quality. Like Mel isn't coming in and practicing her cricket bowl. She's coming in and doing something that is worthwhile, right? So exercise can be in many forms, but it has to be something that is focused. What do you think an athlete would do in terms of their nutrition? When they eat food, yeah, it should be, it's tracked, it's accurate. Yeah, it's balanced, exactly. Like the timing that they have the food is right. They're not just smashing a bowl of chili before they come and train. They're probably having something that will help their training session and having a bigger meal afterwards. So if you think about the actions that an athlete would take, if you're someone that wants to perform, you need to do more of these things. And we're probably all thinking, yeah, I don't do those things. Yeah, sleep, they should prioritize sleep. Their lifestyle and work should be geared towards performing in some sort of way. And I'm talking like, if we think extreme, we can just dial it down a little bit. Now, I'm not saying quit your jobs, as much as that would be nice, because we want to go to the gym and perform loads, but we can think about the things, what we spend outside of the gym. And then alcohol. What does an athlete do, Matt, for alcohol? Yeah. Yeah, so performance, when you just yourselves, you don't need me to tell you what you think an athlete would do. Yeah, it is actually really, really obvious. You can think about those actions that those athletes or the people that perform would take and just dial it down a little bit and just start steering your actions towards a little bit more what they would do. I've already touched on this a little bit, but it is a chicken and the egg scenario. So you're probably thinking at this point, I really don't know what to do. I don't know whether to lose fat or lose muscle first, or should I focus on performance? It doesn't really matter which one you choose to do, because you've got a lot of time to achieve what you want, unless you've got a holiday coming up that you need to be looking good for. But if we choose fat loss, like fat loss will help muscle gain and performance in some way. If you're somebody that is a lighter person, you'll be able to expend more energy and perform better within the gym, because doing burpees is harder when you're 100 kilos compared to 80 kilos. In the same way, fat loss will help you gain muscle, because if you're a lighter person, again, you might be more energized, you may be able to do higher quality workouts rather than struggling because you're on a daily basis, you're lacking energy because it costs more to move around. But then the opposite is also true. Like if you gain more muscle, it makes it easier to burn more because you're able to expend more energy, you're able to perform better, you're able to do more in the gym, you're able to output more. So whichever one you choose, it doesn't really matter. But what I would say, me personally, I would always, for the majority of people, steer towards the fat loss side, mainly because it's easier to create an outcome. It doesn't take as long, and you can get in a position where you feel good about yourself, you've got a little bit of a win under your belt, you're able to do a little bit more within the gym, and then you can prioritize that, and you'll flick between the two. I've recently been myself in a position of trying to lose as much fat as possible, because I want to be as light as possible as I'm doing 8 kilometers running around a High Rocks race, trying to chase Rick. I need to be as light as possible. I can't have any extra in my back pocket. I was going to shave my head to make myself lighter, but I've already done that, so I can't do anything more. So thinking about which one you choose, it doesn't really matter, but you need to choose something, but both will help performance. I've just covered all of that. I'm going to switch to, in the performance section of your sheet, you can choose now whether you're going to focus on the goal that you decided to at the start, but just give yourself a little time frame to commit to. It could be the 6 weeks challenge that you're going to commit to. You want to just stay with the 6 weeks. That'll set you nicely up towards the 30th of November, and then you can just destroy all your hard work over Christmas on selection boxes and mince pies. Or you can decide, I've got something coming up next year, I've got a holiday, or again, you're getting married, something like really strong motivators. But if you just set yourself a time frame to complete in, at least you're making something happen. We've all had a deadline before that has made us do some sort of work, rather than just having it in the back of your mind and thinking, I will do this at some point. There is another section, I believe, on your controllables. So in the controllables and measurables, I think I've got some suggestions on the next slide over. Yes. You can use some of these as suggestions. You can use them all, or you can use some of them. I'll send everyone the slides so you don't have to write them all down now in a bit of a rush. But as many measurables as you can do will help you stay on track, I think. Again, like checking your bank balance is a really good way to remind yourself that you've got a lot or a little money, but it'll make you make actions towards improving your bank balance in some way. So the same way, if you've got many things that you can measure to make you improve, I think happiness is the key one. You all want to be happier in some way. It's quite hard to measure, but you can diarize it on a scale, like 1 to 10, like the happiest you've ever been, the saddest you've ever been. Typically, you will go higher on the scale if you're just making positive actions to where you want to go, regardless of the outcome. Your performance in the gym, like BoxMate, is a good one that everyone should be tracking the performance in the gym in terms of like their lifts or their PBs, like gymnastics or times. Body weight, your aesthetics in terms of pictures. You can also use body size in your pictures, or clothes are a really good one. If you've got something that you used to wear but you don't wear anymore, you can use that as a gauge, or something that you've worn previously that you've done really well, and just to give you a reminder that you have made loads of positive decisions before. And like, I don't know, like a really big pair of jeans, put them up, hang them up so they're visible. That's a measurable. And then every now and again you could try them on. If they don't fit, you need to do more work. If they do fit, you're making towards, you'll have something in mind that you think, oh, I feel really good that I can now wear this. Your habits, you've got a habit tracker sheet, which you can use with all the measurables that you've got and the controllables that you've got. You could write down in there, and I just want you to tick them off on a daily basis. Put it by your bedside table or something you see regularly and you can just keep a track of. The first few times will feel a little bit menial because you've not got a lot of ticks in a box, but the more ticks in the box, the more motivation you'll get, the ball will get rolling. I think that's a really good way just to keep on track. And then you can also look back at it and think, you know what, I have been doing really well. Before you know it, you're in a bit of a streak and you'll be more likely to keep that streak going. I think habit tracker is a really good one. And then scales for your feeling and your energy. They're all very subjective. Moving on from today, what I want you all to do is to consider doing probably the most boring task, but one of the most important tasks, is finding out who you are right now. And the best way to do that, if you're going for your nutrition, is just tracking what you eat. If I work with anybody one-to-one, I do what is the most underwhelming activity first, and I just say, all I want you to do is track a week of who you are exactly right now without making any decisions, like any different decisions. Just do exactly what you're doing. Because the best thing that happens is you become very aware of what you're doing, and there might be some things in that you're like, oh, I didn't realize I did that, but you're also not lying about it and turning around to me and going, oh, I have chicken salad every single day, which most people tend to say. But that isn't the case, because if you were doing that every day, you wouldn't need my help. So just do exactly. If it is that at night you find that you are a little bit maybe embarrassed that you are someone that has 3 takeaways a week and you didn't realize it, because looking back, it's really easy to forget what you have done in terms of your decisions. This is a really good way of just highlighting where you currently are. And then you can use the controllables and your measurables to start steering that towards where you want to go. So if you can from now, your first step is working out where you are now. And then we'll start to steer the ship in the direction we want to go through some very simple trackers, and then something that you can do on a daily basis using your habits. So it could be the rules, it could be tracking your calories, it could be activity. You've got plenty of sections there where you can write something down and you can start ticking them. The more, the better, I would say. And then from there, the next step that I would say to you to do is to start making small decisions that shift your curve that we talked about earlier in the direction you want to go. And it doesn't have to be something really extreme. I don't want you to, like I said before, sprint the first mile of a marathon and have to quit because you've burnt out. I want you to choose some really low-hanging fruit that you can do that doesn't really feel that different. So if we use this one, increasing your training by 5 minutes. It could be that at the end of a session, we've got 15 minutes in between sessions now, or in the morning you've got a little bit more time, 5 minutes on the bike after your session. 5 minutes on your bike after a session, just turning it over will turn into 5 minutes of maybe giving it a little bit more. And then that might turn into 10 minutes because you're starting to see a little bit more from that. The smaller decisions that will compound over time are good, and they will increase over time as well. Same for reducing your calories in easy areas. If you do identify what you're currently doing at the moment, you might realize that you're somebody that has something at lunchtime that it's just become a habit. I know somebody used to have breakfast bars in the car, and they used to just get in the car and have a breakfast bar on the way to work, whether they've had breakfast or not, because it's in there and it just becomes a habit. I do it at the moment with chewing gums. I literally live a mile down the road, and as soon as I get in the car, I find myself putting my hand in it and having a chewing gum. Now, I know that isn't bad, but it's a habit that's easily done. And there might be something that you do at night time. You have a dessert after tea every single night because it's just a habit that you're in. Or it might be something that you have in the morning. It might be a drink. It might be something that you do every weekend because it comes to weekend. Oh, I always have a bottle of wine at weekend. We used to have a guy that used to do Monday Club. I think it was Monday Club, and he used to have wine every Monday because that would just become a habit. Not saying stop that completely, but there's little things that you can start to do to change when you identify where you are. Drinking water if hydration is it, drinking it on the hour. Walking instead of driving where you can. Now, don't walk into town if you work in town, but you could park a little bit further away. You could be someone that takes the stairs. Standing at your desk instead of sitting. It could be every hour you decide to just stand up and walk around. All simple things that you've definitely heard before. And then I talked about setting your alarm because sleep is super important. Set it to go to sleep as well as waking up. Could you grab the mugs? Yeah. These are something that should have been set out beforehand, but you've all got a little bit of a goodie to go away with. You've got a travel mug. If you want to, I would say I've got a Sharpie marker that I'll give you. You can write down something like a motivating factor, and then you can cover it up with the little sleeves. Rick, would you give Soph a hand, please? Rick, would you grab some as well? Just dish them out. Thank you. These are travel mugs. This is something you can just take with you wherever you go. You can, like I say, write down something that motivates you, and it can be your constant reminder that when you're having your daily coffee on your commute, or you're going on a walk or something, it might just be a prompt for you to make some positive decisions. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do write it on your mug, make sure it's the one that I've just given you and not your face. I mean, that would be really motivating if you wrote your goal on your forehead. That would make you make the right decisions. No, you can't. Maybe write each other's goal on each other's foreheads. Mind you, you'd have to cut his hair, wouldn't you? And then getting probably a little bit more softer with you. Think about why you're going to do it, right? That flag is a really good example, and I don't know if you ever even noticed it in being in the gym, but I very regularly look at that when I'm training. Usually when I'm on my own, I'm on the bike and I'm doing like a long session. It's cool to read, and it just gives you a little bit of a reminder of why you actually do it. If you've got a reason why you want to start making some sort of progress that is powerful to you, it'll be personal to you, but it should be something that motivates you. Write that down on it, or write it down on your piece of paper so that when you're ticking your habits off, you're reminding yourself every single time, this is the reason why I'm doing it. That is the most important thing. Just use it in a positive way. Everyone will have something that's important to them, and it should be something that motivates them. In fact, there's a little thing I thought the other day, so if you don't even know this, I've got a video of Herc lay on me, laughing and giggling, and then just starting crying. And I watched it and I thought, that's the reason why I don't post on social media anymore. I've not got time, because my time is spent with my son, crying or laughing in some way. But then I also thought, that's the reason why I should be posting on social media. That's the reason why I should be trying to grow my business. That should be my reason why I do something, not my reason why I don't do something. And that to me is really, really powerful to me. And I've been thinking about that since it was only the other day that I thought about it. And I haven't still posted on social media, but the point stands, right? It is something that really motivates me, and I think it'd be something cool if you've all got something as important to you as I've got something there that will motivate me in some way. So you should have your plan. You should be able to know your current position or have an idea of how you're going to find your current position. You should have some measures, some actions, and something to make you start progressing on there. Something direct that you can start to use today in terms of the numbers or strategies. You've got your goals in terms of like your approach, whether you are going to go fat loss, muscle gain, performance, whichever you choose, or all three in some sort of combination. And I want you to think how you're going to measure it, which is on your habit list, but then some way of reflecting as well. Like have something in 6 weeks' time that you're going to say, have I done what I wanted to do? And hopefully at that point, in the end of the 6 weeks, you'll think I have made some good decisions. I don't want you to get towards December and think I've just not done anything over the 6 weeks. I would encourage you all to set a reminder on your phone in 3 weeks' time to say, how are you getting on? Or just something that will prompt you to assess what you've done in the last 3 weeks. And what you will either do is either think, I've done really well over the last 3 weeks, I'm going to keep doing it for the next 3 weeks. Or you'll think, I've done bugger all over the last 3 weeks, I need to actually do something now for the next 3 weeks. And it'll just be a checkpoint just to bring you back to where you currently are. So you've got your plan. What usually happens now, hopefully, is you go away and you make all the positive decisions. You've got all the 3 things that you need. Your targets, your focus, how you're going to apply them, but things do happen where your motivation will dip. You will have questions at some point. Hopefully you're not leaving here with more questions than answers, but you will get more questions and life gets busy and then you don't really focus on these things. If you want to come along and do for the next 6 weeks, I'm asking that you join us on a 6-week continuation program where we'll do more bits on this, but in more bite-sized chunks rather than try to cram everything into a short period of time. But we'll do other things. I'll give you some small additional training, particularly people that are looking for fat loss or muscle gain. Very small stuff that will complement the training that you're already doing. Your support and group check-ins on a daily and a weekly basis. Meal prep suggestions by Soph, because I'm a naff chef, but Soph knows everything because I talk about it all the time. And then also like direct feedback from myself, like the ability to be able to say, I am struggling with this specific thing, or I could say, I think you could do this thing better. If you want to join along, there's a little QR code on the bottom of your thing that you can scan and you can sign up. We are starting on Monday, if you do want to jump in and make some good progress over the next 6 weeks. Which brings us to the end. Has anyone got any questions? Not where my hair's gone. No, is everyone happy with all that? Cool. If there is something that you do want to ask and you don't want to ask it publicly, either drop me a message or come and grab me now. I think we've got 15 minutes, Soph, before we've got to leave. Yeah, while we pack up. Yeah, cool. Cool. If you have to do anything, but thank you very much for coming. Please enjoy the mugs and let me know if you want to join us for the next 6 weeks. Cool. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, if you just chuck the pens on the box, anywhere you want. Hey, Belle was very good, wasn't she?
Yeah. Have to make sure that someone who helps pay themselves.
Yes, somebody.
The main thing is less sugar.
They're a bit funny, the chairs, to sort out. They go the other way. Yeah?
And I'll do it.
Yeah, sure.
Is that all right?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you very much.
Still need to sign up on the thing, though.
No, I'll just put your name down. Yeah, that's fine. That's it, it goes up like that. Dead weird, isn't it? I was like watching a monkey learn how to use the tool for the first time there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Abby. Have a nice day. Yes, please, sir.